Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Cancer and your moon in Pisces. And I actually had to search my channel to see if I had already done this because this was requested and it's beginning to seem like Groundhog's Day around here because these combinations can sometimes feel like a blur. I recently did Sun in Cancer, Moon in Scorpio, and you have this double water energy, and you're like, well, it's going to be similar, but it's never quite the same. And when I do the opposite, if I haven't done so yet, the Sun in Pisces and the Moon in Cancer, it's going to have different features than the other way around. So, what we're talking about here is a double water sign. So, first off, we know that the person is definitely an emotional person. There's always a possibility when you look at the rising sign that the person may not give off that vibe first and foremost when you meet him or her. Now, obviously, I'm talking about you as if you're not the person in question, but I'm just saying for the rest of us, if we look at you, and let's say your rising sign is Gemini, or let's say your rising sign is Libra, an air sign, or even Aquarius, which would be really far out, it's going to be more detached. So that emotional side is not going to be immediately apparent. Sometimes the rising sign, when it's in a very gregarious sign, like Leo or Gemini or maybe Sagittarius, it can come across very upbeat, very lively, and I was going to say positive, but when I say positive, I'm not saying that water is negative. But water is considered negative in terms of being feminine. Feminine is negative and masculine is positive. And it's all about inner and outer uh, projection of energy. And so the extroverted rising sign can give, first impression of somebody who is not shy, likes to be very social, when in fact they prefer more of the home-oriented activities when you get to know them more, especially when the sun is in Cancer, because Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family. So it's probably like a unicorn rarity for a Cancer person not to really find comfort and safety in the home environment versus, spending a lot of time out of the home. So the sun is the aspirational self, and it's what we strive to become in this lifetime. And it isn't meant to be indicative of your soul, because your soul is beyond any sun sign, obviously, but it really does color this incarnation. And so whatever the sun sign is, we can really gain insight into the theme of this lifetime for the individual. So for a Cancer sun sign, the individual, even if they have a career, there's always the element of nurturing that is first and foremost. Now, does every Cancer woman give birth or adopt children? Nope. Or does every Cancer man father a child or raise a child? No, they don't. But there's going to be something in their life that is a substitute for that. So maybe they have a bunch of fur babies. Maybe, or even like adopting, not adopt, you don't say that about animals, fostering animals or things like that if they're not actually raising a lot of, not having a lot of pets in the home. But they may, you may foster animals. You may choose a profession where you're taking care of children, like a daycare or a grade school teacher. You may choose to work in healthcare. You may feel a calling in that area because of the desire to take care of people, and therefore being a nurse would be the first choice, not necessarily a doctor, because think about it, nurse, nurturing. I always say that phoneme must mean to take care of, nur. So anyway, that's that. And the interesting thing about Cancer is it's a cardinal sign. So it is a water sign, but it's a cardinal sign. So cardinal signs are take charge kind of signs. And they do things. They actually take action, initiate action. So we're talking about initiating action as it relates to emotions. And therefore, cancers are very active in how they try to obtain affection in life and giving of affection. And so this is where the whole thing comes in, where when a Cancer person is not balanced, they can actually be quite smothering in their affection for another person. They could be taking care of somebody who doesn't want that level of being taken care of. And this can even include children because there might be the tendency to be overprotective and things like that. And so while the sentiment or the idea of it can be really wonderful, that wanting to take care of somebody, when it's taken to the extreme, it can be perceived in a very negative kind of way from others. People may find you overbearing, and I'm just speaking now of the Cancer part of this. There's a reason I'm bringing that up because some of you may not be like this. I'm just speaking specifically to the people who may, even from their childhood, feel deprived emotionally, and so to overcompensate, they're looking for love, and they're trying to find it by giving of others. It's kind of similar to when people try to buy affection through, throwing money at people. And they're looking for this emotional payback, if you will, but they're giving in a way that another person might find excessive or manipulative in some way. But in the positive sense, it can feel very good to people if it's balanced. It can feel like very safe, very caring. And so I want to emphasize the positive and not make it all negative. But then when we look at the moon, we're looking at the emotional nature in and of itself. And, interestingly, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So Cancer, even though it's in the sun sign, it does have a connection to the moon. And in Pisces, wow, we're talking about somebody who may really be quite a sensitive person. And that's what I was really getting at when I was talking about Cancer being a cardinal sign, is that even though Cancer may be sensitive as well, even hypersensitive sometimes, I do believe that Cancer, because it is a cardinal sign, can find a way to do something to better themselves when they are in a tight spot. And I think that Pisces as a sign is more vulnerable being a mutable sign because it may not naturally take action. It might talk to somebody, or it might just try to adapt to whatever situation it's in without taking steps to maybe get away from that situation. So sometimes being flexible can keep somebody in an undesirable situation. So this is the moon sign, and I've been saying since I've been doing some of these that I personally feel that Pisces and Scorpio are two signs that trauma may have been present if the person has their sun, moon, or ascendant in Scorpio or Pisces. And now I'm thinking that maybe we should include Cancer in this as well, but I don't really feel that way in the same sense. I don't know why. It's just like a personal feeling. I feel like Cancer is more immune to it, even if they have gone through traumatic situations. There's something about being a cardinal sign that I think always keeps a person moving forward because they're taking action. And I don't always believe that taking action is warranted, is a good thing, because sometimes it's you're just doing instead of being. But I think that a lot of times it can actually be a saving grace when a person feels compelled to do something about their situation, even if it's not a perfect solution. Because far too many people kind of get paralyzed by fear, by depression, or just that feeling of being in a rut, that they can't break out of that negative pattern, in other words. And they tend to just kind of spiral downhill. And at least when you're taking action, even if it doesn't directly lead you to something that is relief, it can still feel better because you feel like you are somewhat empowered, that you're grabbing the reins of the horse. So I guess I'm saying that to say that I feel like even though this combination can be very sensitive, the fact that the sun sign is in Cancer can mean that the person is always able to do something about their situation to improve it. And so the moon in Pisces can just add to the sensitivity. Psychic ability is present with both of these. Anytime you have water, and this is double water, it's going to be present. And there's also a spiritual influence with Pisces in particular. And in the moon position, it's going to be even more devotional and more intuitive. And this can also be a saving grace because a person can feel like they have something to fall back on that is, that isn't dependent on material circumstances. Another thing that can come up here too has to do with your mother, because the moon rules the mother. And whatever sign the moon is in can give us a glimpse of how the mother may have behaved while you were growing up, and also how she may have treated you. This doesn't mean that the mother was a literal Pisces sun sign, but it could just mean the behavior, the demeanor that she had and also how she treated you. And Pisces, in this context, the mother may have been lost unto herself. Maybe let's talk about the positive. It might be somebody who's very devout spiritually and passed on to you faith in God or certain belief systems that or practices that, maybe she was a meditator or is a meditator and she taught you how to meditate. She might be artistic. She might be very kind-hearted and you benefited from that in some way. On the more challenging side, you might have somebody who has suffered from mental illness to the point, in some cases, where the mother may not have been able to take care of the child properly, and there might have been neglect, and the child may have had to fend for him or herself from a very early age. So addiction is part of that mental health, those mental health issues. Sometimes being addicted to bad relationships and being the victim in relationships, in bad relationships. And so, especially for a female child, this can be devastating because we tend to identify with our same-sex parent. And this can lead the young Sun in Cancer girl to grow up and get involved in relationships with men who are abusive if she saw her mother being abused by men and in some way. Now, it's important to note that in same-sex relationships, the dynamic may not be there because usually you're going to project that, or it has to be that same, if it's a man who's an abuser, you're going to distrust men, you know what I'm saying? So if you are a woman attracted to other women, it may not translate in the same way as what I'm saying. So anyway, it's just, it can be like overwhelming, some of the emotions that the person feels. So what I would say to you is be careful about making sure that you're not a people pleaser, a consummate people pleaser. Both Cancer and Pisces can be, have perfected the art of martyrdom. And I would say Cancer is more vocal about it and more aggressive about it. Pisces might suffer in silence. But you didn't come here to be a victim, and you didn't come here to, suppress your own life for the sake of somebody else. When you really want, for instance, to give everything you can to your children, give every opportunity to them because you love them so much, then I wouldn't even use the word sacrifice because it's you don't feel like you're losing anything in that act. It's only a sacrifice if you feel like it's almost in vain, like there's nothing good that's really coming of it. And an example of a common sacrifice is a codependent relationship because you may get involved with someone who, let's say, has an addiction, and you are spending so much of your time and energy trying to keep them sober, call their boss so they don't get fired, trying to put out all these fires that they are creating by their dysfunctional behavior. And you don't have time to pursue your own dreams. That's an example of a useless sacrifice because it's not getting that other person anywhere. It's not improving their life. It's enabling them to actually continue their destructive pattern, so, or behavior. So, learning how to say no in a way that is both polite and very decisive, and not feeling guilty about it. And also getting involved with people who are not projects, but they are partners to you, and they add value to your life. They're not creating more problems. You know, we already have enough problems. We don't need people in our life that are going to drag us down because they haven't gotten their life together. And the thing about the moon in Pisces is it's very compassionate and very non-judgmental. Probably a lot more non-judgmental than your sun in Cancer is. Because, truth be told, Cancer, because to me, it's because it rules the fourth house of home and family. There's always a security element there. And so if anything threatens the Cancer security, eventually they're going to cut it loose. So if you're involved with somebody that can't keep a job, I don't think, and I would say this would be especially true if you are a woman with a man, that you're not going to tolerate that man doing this forever, just because it makes you nervous thinking that you have to be the sole breadwinner. And also there's a very distinct, or is it distinctive, traditional streak in Cancers. And I would say Pisces too. All water and earth signs in general are more conservative or traditional. This has nothing to do with political affiliation. I'm talking about just belief systems. And therefore, you would have more expectations of a man being in control of his life. And so that kind of thing. And you might be looking for a man to be like a strong protector of the family, and would resent a man who you consider weak, who is not, pulling his weight, so to speak. So that's the thing that you wouldn't tolerate, but the moon in Pisces would tolerate that, and does tolerate it, and the sun in Pisces. I'm saying this because we can't look at just one influence. We have to look at it all together. So, it would depend on other factors. Where is your sun? If your sun is in the 12th house, you may be more empathic and more Piscean, and that might push you over the top and make you more willing to tolerate just about anything. And also that you may have had a dysfunctional childhood, like if you have Neptune in the 4th house, for instance, or some of the more intense placements, like Pluto in the 1st or 4th house, or 8th house. You might be kind of a survivor yourself, and so somebody who has an addiction, or they're just exhibiting kind of irresponsible behavior, can almost feel like another child to you that you can take care of. And it doesn't feel threatening to you because you're in control. So yes, sometimes this combination, if other factors support it, may unconsciously be attracted to people who are dependent types, because they're easy for you to control and they feel safe. But I think even then, eventually, I think that you really wouldn't respect such a person underneath it all. And it would eventually fizzle out, because you would want something more for your life. And another thing to realize is that you can see the good in people, which the moon in Pisces in particular is able to feel that need that the other person has for love, and and um, and want to convey to people that they are lovable. And you can do that without getting personally involved in that situation if that other person has a lot of issues that they need to take care of. Because, sometimes people are having a rough patch. They may have an addiction, they may have some kind of mental, psychological issues that they need to heal from, or even physical things that they need to heal from. And that doesn't mean that they are permanently unqualified to be in a relationship. It just might mean that at that point that you are, looking at them, that they might not be capable of the relationship. So, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying, oh, everybody that is unemployed or has some kind of problem is, a wretched soul. No, I mean, a lot of people go through these things, but actually, when somebody is in that situation, the last thing they need to do is distract themselves with a relationship. They, even in AA, they say don't get involved with somebody after you're in recovery for about a year. And that makes sense because you have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. And by the way, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't recommend frying fish. But anyway, so another thing to be aware of that you might have a tendency to do is manipulate. And some of this can come from childhood and what do you call that? Learned behaviors. You might have seen a parent or two manipulating. But sometimes manipulation happens to get one's needs met. And the person isn't doing it to be deceitful, to be, disrespectful to another person. They simply feel that that's the only way that they're going to be given what they think that they need. And the more that you can be straightforward and asking for what you need and not being afraid of what that other person's going to say and being very truthful, because the moon in Pisces can be secretive. And I feel like all water signs, but especially Cancer and Pisces, have a tendency to be indirect. And this is one of those things that's so funny for me as a Sun and Sagittarius person to encounter people that are expecting other people to read their mind, and they may pout and they may do these things to try to hint that they're displeased, or that they're sad or whatever. And being direct is always the best way to communicate your feelings. Not being passive aggressive. Yeah, and that includes, like, if you're angry, don't be passive aggressive, but don't be hysterical. State things very, very openly. That's the mature way of handling things. And it's really about getting a handle on your emotions to the point where you can step back a little bit, because emotions are conditioned responses to life. And they're very personal and therefore very subjective. And when you are immersed in subjectivity, it's very hard to see the bigger picture because you're so wrapped up in your own tale of woe. And that's another thing, is being able to not feel pity for yourself, feel sorry for yourself. It's okay to feel compassion for yourself and to feel like you've been through a lot and you give yourself a lot of credit and you love yourself. One of the best ways to kind of open that heart chakra when it comes to your own past struggles and pain is to look at a picture of yourself when you're a little child. I remember I did this for myself, and it was very powerful because you see the innocence inside of you and you feel that compassion for the goodness inside of you. And you may have people that have told you things countering that goodness. And you don't have to believe other people. People say all kinds of things. They might even have said that to because they really thought the exact opposite, that they thought you were very pure and that they were the evil ones. And they were projecting that negative self-image onto you. So the point is that you can have compassion for yourself without feeling self-pity, which is kind of connected to that martyrdom mentality. Because in the advanced stages of that, it becomes covert narcissism. And narcissism, like anything else, is the person's attempt to heal themselves from past trauma and thinking that if they draw attention to themselves all the time, they're going to do that. And that isn't the point of how we heal. We heal by realizing that we have what we need inside of ourselves, that we were mistaken in thinking that, we need to give our power away to somebody else. That's a natural thing for a child to think because they do feel quite powerless, or they are, really powerless. But when you get to be an adult, you realize when you are tuned in that you have the ability to parent yourself if you weren't parented the way you should have been. But what you can't do is you can't demand affection from other people just because you may not have gotten it growing up. Because some people can be a bottomless pit of need, trying so hard to get it from other people. And the more they try, the more they push people away because people can sense almost like that they're being used as some kind of therapy dog or something. I don't know. So being emotionally balanced is very important, and being upbeat, being very positive, not allowing yourself to drown in your emotions. With the cancer, not living in the past, and being trapped in those memories, but being willing to always, believe that there are better days ahead. Okay, that's what I have for you. I didn't plan to talk this long, and I don't know how many people stuck with me through this whole recording. But in any case, thank you for listening. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.